Karolina, thank you for this time and thank you for inviting us into your space. I know I'm very grateful to be here, as my team, and just for the sake of the listeners, we are at FOLD today in London, which is really special actually to kind of see it for coming into a space when it's fresh and new. It's amazing, very different to nighttime. Other experiences, but I imagine you're here every day, so yeah, you've seen it in every shape and form. I will give you a small introduction and I'll let you explain a bit further. So you are the head of contemporary art programming here at FOLD, but you're also multidisciplinary artist yourself. But naturally, as a creative, you wear many hats, I imagine, here, and also have worn many hats over the years. Which is, we all do, I do as well. But before we dive into your work here at FOLD, I'd love to talk a bit more about you, which is a little bit harder sometimes, but maybe starting from childhood and like your early years.
So I grew up just outside London, and my mum's Swedish, and my dad died when I was really young, so I never knew him. And I've always been interested in music. I grew up playing the accordion and always been interested in art and painting. Like that's, ever since I was a child. And my mum encouraged it. So I've worked in London. I mean, I went to university, like my BA in Nottingham, and came here to do my master's at the Royal College of Art. But I, have always worked around London, always worked in nightlife, even when I was at university, and always been interested in the kind of convergence of both worlds, contemporary art and electronic music.
That's nice. What did you study at the Royal College of Art?
So I studied painting, and but I was put into a cohort, which was the first kind of group that has now turned into the program of contemporary art contemporary art practice. And that cohort was based around performance art and moving image. And so my practice was always kind of on the verge of those three things. But actually, even though I studied painting, I didn't paint at all once during the whole time. But I focused mainly on both that kind of moving image and performance art.
Okay, nice. And how do you feel from what you studied then at the time then? So you said you didn't really do that much painting, but you work predominantly in this art space. And then with performance art, how do you feel like that's influenced your practices that you've now got in this era of your life?
Well, I would say that I seem to have carried that on, but I still kind of see my performance and moving image as quite separate. They obviously are combined, but I kind of, I feel like they're quite separate. And now moving into this space, I've done a lot more kind of collaborations with friends that have similar outlooks to me. One of the most recent performances I did was with Swarm, who's Liam Noonan, who's a really close friend of mine, and we have always understood each other on a different level. And so it made sense for him to bring in his music, and then I have made stuff with making instruments out of air compressor, and and we and I wouldn't say it was an instrument, but it was a tool to it was kind of a ritual where it was about kind of purging. So it was purging the old and creating space for new, but that it was mainly based around how noise is a form of purging. So
absolutely.
The opposite. It's how purging can be sick and snot and the detritus of certain things are the opposite, and it's noise is actually that based in music. So and then also my work's just really personal. So it always has that, it's usually my personal life is a catalyst for an idea, and I bring that into it. And so it was even crying that that was put into that work as well.
Yeah, it's you just made me think about you know, those boxes that people make and you just stand in a room and like scream.
Yeah.
And everyone says, oh, every workspace should have this. And I'm like, absolutely, I am an advocate for standing in a room and screaming.
Yeah, it's like the kind of vulnerability, like that kind of essence of like where you're most vulnerable, that kind of interests me. But then I would say that my work's quite theoretical as well. So it's like bringing in that kind of vulnerability and like honesty. So it's like everybody, like the ideas that you can relate to it, and like that's like a catalyst to pull people in. But actually I'm talking about like a lot more like theoretical like subjects, like this idea of intentionality, which kind of means like a theory of aboutness. So it's like how, like, but that's more to do with my relationship to making work. So it's like I actually have struggle like in the idea of like why should I make work about something? So it's kind of like using my personal life, and then also like this work that I made, that I've been making for a long time, is based around like it's all audio from my therapy sessions, but I've taken out the actual content of it and put theory in those spaces. So it's actually you don't see, there's not the personal stuff there, but you can still really relate to what I'm talking about and what I'm struggling with.
That's amazing. And then what kind of format is that going to be?
That's just going to be a film, yeah. Like I have used elements of the stuff that I've made in that in my performances, but I kind of see that more as a film.
That's amazing. I think, is that going to be public as well?
Yeah. I've been working on it for so many years. It's one of those things because it's so personal. It's just I can't really seem to finish it. It's not right. Like it doesn't feel right yet. And it has my mum in it. Like I secretly recorded my mum when we were looking for a therapist for me, and so it has my mum in it as well. And it's just I can't seem to finish it, but I'm aiming to do that. Like it's almost finished basically. It's just
I guess it's almost like having a diary and leaving it on the side for the entire world to read, isn't it? It's brave. It's really brave.
And I feel like it's like, to me, it has like political elements to it, and it also has a lot to do with my relationship to making work, which is another reason why I feel like I started Futur.Shock. It's like feeling disillusioned with like making work, and like why should I? Which isn't the right. I don't see it like that way anymore. It's more when I started making the work, but it's like, things have changed. So in a way, this Futur.Shock has been like a way to move through that for me, and then maybe I'll finish this work.
Maybe. I guess as life progresses, though, it might just be this ever-changing project, and it'll be like the last thing that you ever release is this work of art. The time will come. The time will come. It sounds amazing, though, and exploring yourself in that way. As you said earlier, it's super vulnerable. Really vulnerable.
Yeah. Well, I see that as, kind of political in a way. Like using your vulnerability as like a political tool to, because I think, it is political.
Yeah, for sure. And also just revisiting past wounds over and over again. And I guess seeing the growth and recognising that and how that informs other areas of your life and other bits of work you've done as well. For sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I guess we'll see when it comes out. But the reason why we're here today is to talk primarily about Futur.Shock, which has obviously been, I guess, the trajectory you've been on for a long time, probably to get to this place, which is incredible. So progressing through this university era and your studies, when did your relationship with FOLD begin?
So that began, like, to be honest, like, pretty much at the start. So Seb, who's one of the co-founders, is an old friend of mine. And when they started this project, FOLD, him and Lasha Giorgiuliani, who's the other co-founder, we talked about, like, bringing art into this space. And so we started off by doing like an Arts Council application, which I did start actually like at the around the end of 2018. The FOLD started in August 2018.
Yeah.
And then that was to do like an immersive exhibition within the space. And we did it, but at the time I didn't really know the difficulties of actually like making that happen within this space when there's also club nights happening every single weekend. The team is very much based in like electronic music and those kind of events and not contemporary art. So it was like us figuring out how to work with each other in this space.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got the funding to do that. We did do like a first iteration, which was like the launch of Fold Lab, which has turned into Futur.Shock. And that did do some of the ideas I'm interested in, but it was difficult. Like we did do the exhibition, but then we had to take it down for the nights and then put it back up again, because that was kind of the idea.
Yeah.
And I would say it worked to an extent, but the actual performance program was what worked well. That's what we figured out during that process. And that's kind of how Futur.Shock evolved, because actually that was the most exciting part of it, I think. Even though all the works that were submitted, they were all really exciting. But I mean, I can talk a bit about but I can talk about that later. But the fact that, in that idea, which is something I want to do later on in a like realize it in a better way, was to put artworks in the space that was site specific that could actually stay here. Yes. So like artworks, like they develop the work for the space. But the problems with that is the fact that they might not align with what the like other promoters might want to do on their nights. And so if we made like a sound piece in the toilet, the promoters might not want that because it doesn't fit with their aesthetic or our in-house nights. So that's like a work in progress. But there was some exciting stuff. Like we had loads of one artist hung loads of dog poo bags, fake dog poo bags in the toilets
with actual
fake dog poo in them.
Yeah, and with you. I was like, what is a fake dog poo bag?
He actually rolled up and made fake dog poo
with clay. Or...
I don't know what it was, but I still got some at home. Which is weird.
You still have one hanging from your ceiling. I love that. I can imagine. I can only imagine the ideas that have been thrown on the table.
And I think everybody here has thought I'm a bit crazy. But...
as all ideas should be, you know? So you talked a little bit there about the development from Fold Lab into Futur.Shock. So that initial genesis of the idea of Fold Lab, what did it look like to you? What was the kind of initial vision that you expected? I know you said it wasn't exactly what realised and actualised to what it was to start with, but right at the beginning, what was the idea?
Well, what I wanted to do was bring contemporary art into this space. And like I said, as like my own practice is political, like I see, and also that is Lash's, that's why I kind of mesh well with him, because he sees this place as political as well. And I feel like for me, it feels like the kind of final frontier. And I feel like a lot of the time when I was doing performances in like gallery spaces or in certain like festivals or things like that, it's like they don't actually have the kind of infrastructure to be able to develop work like that I actually wanted to make, or that of stuff that I was interested in. And I feel like this space has the infrastructure, and James Newmarch, who is the tech manager, who's amazing, has created, has developed such incredible sound in the space, and then obviously all of the resources here. It's perfect for the way that performance art is going, and to support multidisciplinary practices. So I wanted to have the infrastructure and see what artists would make if they were given this kind of context, and not just this context in terms of the resources, but also the context in terms of club culture. And there are so many amazing artists, which is what I've discovered through this process of people that are interested in that. I don't necessarily think that it has to be about club culture. That's one thing that I feel like people get stuck on when they, and I wanted to take that away as well. Be it's not, you don't have to make work about club culture if it's inside a club. You know, it can be anything. And I do feel like the evolution, like artists, that I see it more in culture and what artists are making, and that, yeah, you can actually put anything in here.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about this idea as naturally as a human, we love to put things in a box. And I think it's really breaking down that boundary of like, okay, this is a space you've got. Yes, you've probably interacted with it as a club. Just forget about that for a minute. See what you can roll with it. It's nice. It's amazing. And giving floor to artists that probably would never, as you said, interact probably with the space as a club, but actually their work, phenomenal.
Yeah.
And with the audience, which we'll get into later. But it's amazing. In that time period then, so 2018, Fold starts, we move into 2020, which eventually I hope that we never talk about this period of COVID, but I do think it is instrumental in the timeline. What kind of impact did this have on the development into Futur.Shock?
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning then, we just started to do it, and we were just starting to think about how it works, like, in this space. And we'd done, obviously, the first, like, programme. But then, obviously, COVID happened, and I had to start thinking about how we can, you know, we did, like, as Fold in itself, loads of streams, like, in the lift, which people, I'm sure, know about. And I did think about doing performance art then, but that was, like, it was a bit difficult to do that. So we started to do, like, online streams, and then finding artists that make work like that kind of merging of, like electronic music and like moving image, and not like music videos, but actually like sound art, and people that have made work using like both. There was loads of different artists that we basically streamed like during that period that either had made work or made work specifically for that. And then another element to Futur.Shock is like the idea of like educating people and like talking about that kind of convergence of both worlds, and like digital culture, immersive environments. So we had a few talks as well, and also some workshops based around like we did one with Bastille Instruments, making like synths, and then also. A few different talks and workshops. And that kind of thing is also another element that I want to expand upon. We did do one workshop here that we got funding from Newham Council, which was just to teach people like the basics of music production. Nice. It's trying to also like educate people to be able to develop and make work specifically for this space that isn't just about. And I think that is how bringing it back to COVID is how COVID did influence it, because then, and I saw that with loads of my friends that were making music, they started to make different types of music, like not just like club music for making people dance, like they started to think differently about what they were making. And I do believe that has had an impact on how culture has evolved now, because you see a lot more of this type of like the type of work that's being showcased at Futur.Shock happening everywhere a bit more. I mean, in London, I do think Europe has done a lot more of that already.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think you're right. And I always laugh when I think about this time of like COVID, because it's such a distinct period of time.
Yeah.
But as we said there, people really did push the boundaries of their like creativity, their exploration. They might have. Some people who never did something were now all of a sudden performers, or they were artists, or they were musicians, because we had that opportunity. But also bringing it back into Futur.Shock, which is actually a reference point from the book that talks about accelerating into this digital era, and we were quite literally accelerated.
Yeah, well, that was, a major part of. Like, I had developed this project during COVID, which was based around me reading that book. And it was because I felt like we'd been thrust into this kind of era where we just didn't know, we had to like recalibrate. like in terms of like how we do everything and how we work, and the fact that we just got thrust into a future that was like unknown, and everybody was, and I really at the time wanted to do an exhibition then, because we acquired downstairs, which is now studios, and we had a period where we had just this open like warehouse space, and I developed this project to do like a Futur.Shock exhibition downstairs that would kind of launch Futur.Shock, the new kind of version of it, because at the time before that it was Fold Lab, and then but we didn't get the funding to do that. So then I kind of things started happening again, and but I do still plan to do that in the future, but maybe it won't be cool. It will be based around a different concept.
Yeah. How have you found your experiences with funding to be for certain projects?
Yeah, well, we've been quite successful. We were successful with the first one, and then we got like CRF funding during COVID, which I applied for, and then since then we haven't, because we've been really busy. But now I've just recently applied for another project for us to do. Which would be more like that's a Fold project though, not a Futur.Shock project, which would be more based around doing a residency for artists to come here and like use a studio that we're going to build and to make music specifically for this space, and then we'll do like a showcase at the end. I mean, that's loosely what the So hopefully we get that.
Nice. Well, I hope so. Just going back onto the book again, in terms of this idea, that book, I think it came out, it's Alvin Toffler, it was in like the 70s.
Yeah.
What's so interesting is that from the 70s to now, you usually be like, oh, it's kind of outdated, it's, but actually it's probably, not everything's bang on the money. It's not. There's a few things that aren't, but it is still very relevant. And
the idea
behind it is super relevant. And I guess the evolution of where we could go with Futur.Shock is so vast, because we're just constantly, as it says, accelerating into this like digital world. One thing I kept thinking about when I was preparing to speak to you, it just ties to this flashback. And I was it's funny because of the time period. So in 2019, I was over in Shanghai, and I remember walking past a poster, and it was some sort of conference about AI. And at the time, I don't think AI had quite hit mainstream. So I was like, what is AI? Like, what is it? And obviously I'm in China, which just felt also like a million light years ahead. And I was going to all these amazing exhibitions, seeing some incredible stuff. And now we're in this age where AI is fundamental. It's actually it's interwoven into a lot of people's careers and jobs and things like this already, and how alien it felt then to now. And we're just like, moving then on to programming and thematic exploration. How do you program something like Futur.Shock?
So, originally, so I program I do it in seasons. So then I would have like an overarching theme for the season, and then each chapter also kind of has its own sub-theme. A lot of those themes have come just from my own like practice, or like things that I've been thinking about, like mental health, like this idea of like purging and like creating like a new this year was more based around like metamorphosis and I basically kind of pick artists. I have like a whole list of artists, so sometimes they're like people from quite a while away that I have been thinking about, and then I'm like, oh, actually I think their work would fit, or the kind of practice that they make would fit into this like programming of this season. And then obviously new artists come along, but then I'll add them to my list, and then I'll try and find a space for them, like when a theme comes up that kind of makes sense for their work. And most of the time it's like works that they've kind of already started thinking about or making, or somebody will come up that has sent me something that I think suddenly makes sense, like in that like season. So yeah, I kind of have an idea like quite far in advance, and then like fit what I've been thinking about or who I've been looking at, like to make sense for that
That's
season.
quite nice. So you still give the artists quite a lot of autonomy in what they bring to the theme, but you have almost orchestrated it a little bit because they do suit.
Yeah. And then some of them will make like totally new work based around like what they're thinking or the fact that of the theme, or a lot of them already have something they're working on, and then they'll develop it like a little bit more for like a live setting, or like for the space or for that theme.
Nice. You mentioned earlier that you work quite closely with a few of your friends that I guess have probably grown with you into your period. Do you have them programmed a lot into your Futur.Shock events?
Yeah, a lot of friends, like the whole, like right at the beginning, it's, a lot of people that I already know. Like when we did the first, after COVID, when we did the first performance, like Futur.Shock basically, in season 1, it was Tai Shani, who I knew from, she was my tutor at Royal College of Art.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then that kind of made sense, and it kind of evolved from that. And then obviously you meet new people as well. Like I always knew about Maxwell Sterling's work, but they had made something together. So then I was like, oh my God, Maxwell Sterling works really well for Futur.Shock. And then obviously then you start to have more conversations with different artists, and then I'm like, okay, they might work for the next season. So yeah, and a lot of them have been my friends or people that I've known, like, already.
It's amazing just having inspiration around you all the time. I feel like when you grow up and you study art or you study whatever you're going into, you're always like, oh, I'd love to be around those kind of people, but actually it is your people that end up being the thing that informs you and what grows. I think it's so beautiful. It's supernatural as well.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
And that's why I think like it's important, like artist-led spaces, because it's really coming from that authentic place of like how you like think as an artist or in your own practice, and then how like people that you've met or you see, or artists that are friends of yours that, like for instance, the first ever Futur.Shock, 2 people that I studied with, Alicia Matthews, who was, her and her boyfriend were making work, and that in a way they really informed the first, like the exhibition that I spoke about before, and their performance really informed what I was thinking about for the whole program. And we studied together like the whole of our masters.
That's nice. It's like very organic as well, and I guess it then doesn't feel like you're curating something that's work. It's just a natural part of the process.
Nice. Yeah, exactly. And it's like sometimes when Frank, do you mind, Frank?
I just saw you coming out of nowhere. It's like, hello.
Frank's my... Do we mind?
Just keep rolling.
Okay. So, Frank's my baby. So I just feel like it's like artist-led spaces are really important, basically. And I think I'm sure it's the same for Lasher with Fold, because, it's a lot of that. Yeah, I'm sure that has informed his, like recently they had a Bassiani.
Oh.
Bassiani.
Take a peek.
I love that he wants to be involved.
I know. Anyone that would watch this will laugh because they know that I have this cat at my house, and I'm always just like, always wants to sit with me, but it's not actually my cat.
Yeah.
Oh. You don't want to sit down either.
So that's, I do just think it's important because it's coming from the right place, like it's coming from love and from like a passion, and the people that you met along the way.
It's nice. Okay, so your next event then is Chapter 3, titled Abyssal, and I believe it's on the 20th of March, which I'm really looking forward to coming to. It's also come around super quick, March. But I just wanted to read out this little excerpt from the website on Abyssal. So, offering a Dionysian experience of collective musical catharsis, destruction as a pathway to creation, unfolding as a dark, multi-sensory journey that confronts the absurd foundations of existence in search of meaning. Now, when I first read this, I was like, that sounds so intense. Like, full throttle, immersive therapy session kind of sounds like what I need. But that I might walk in and not know my own name on the way out. But I wondered what kind of feelings were you hoping to evoke for the audience that were then going to experience this, but also for the artists themselves that contributed towards it?
Yeah, I mean, each artist has very a lot of the music that they make is quite dark and quite visceral. Like you really feel it, and so I felt like everybody, like every work in there kind of makes sense in terms of like this kind of cathartic experience of like and each one is quite the political like aspect of that as well. Like I feel like bringing all of those artists together, but each one has like some are based around like music, but then obviously Eddie Peak is a performance artist and will have more choreography, and those themes relate to his work as well. And then there is also going to be an installation in room 2, which is the first time we've done it for Futur.Shock. We have actually done it for Unfold before, but the students from UCL Performance Interactive, it's called Interactive Architecture Lab, and they kind of build environments or make work for like performance and interaction. So that also adds to this kind of idea of like immersive, like visceral experience. And it will also be interactive, so that people like will be able to interact with the space, and also and like have kind of some kind of relationship to what is being made or the sounds that are going to be made within the space. So the whole thing, like adds to the fact that it's an experience for the audience as well as the artists involved.
Nice. Yeah, I had a look into Torn Relics and kind of their work at this. It's very like jarring, bringing together classical instruments such as the violin with like modular synths and like hardware. It's amazing. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that. But yeah, the program it's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, I went to their house. We've recently interviewed them, and I went to their studio in their house, and they're incredible. They've got some really strange instruments, which you'll see if you watch like the interview. I don't even know what one of them was, but it was like this. Like strange kind of synth that they use a violin bow to make, and then it's also make a drum, like it makes like a drum sound as well. So you'll see that in the interview. But they use really like all sorts of types of instruments, and then she's a violinist as well, Amy, and then like their voices as well. So it will be an intense performance. And so will Saturn, and then Eddie Peak brings more in the kind of contemporary art side of it, and his work is also quite personal as well.
Nice.
So the use of the space, like this one will really use the space like into its full like potential, like with the installation in room 2 and everything.
It's exciting. I think you just touched on there with room 2 specifically, with what you have going on there in terms of audience interaction. What role do the audience play within it, within the projects and kind of the programming? Do you think about what the audience are going to interact like, or is it a bit of a mystery?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a mystery, but that's what I like. Like, I like the fact that this is a flat space where, like, the audience and the artists are on a level playing ground, so that there's, like, a less hierarchy between, like, the performers and the audience. And in the past, like, we've done performances where where they basically, like some of the, like Eve Stainton, they did a performance where like they moved around the whole space and not even all the audience would be able to see what's happening because they're like crouched down like in different areas and then like high up at different points. So the audience was kind of following them around, which is really interesting. And so I like the fact that each iteration of Futur.Shock or each chapter, the audience, you won't know what to expect basically, and like you may be moved around, like, or you can interact with with an installation room too, or
Nice, yeah, it's exciting. I've experienced it's a while ago now something very similar, and we as an audience are moved around, and it's amazing. It's you know, being that interactive element is it's very curious. It's very new, sometimes quite unnatural, but being involved. And also this being put into, it's like a community all of a sudden, like, oh, we're all now part of this art installation. In terms of the audience then that you bring, what does it look like from diversity and inclusivity? Like what kind of audiences are you getting? Are you getting a regular community that come to these Futur.Shock events?
Well, yeah, I think that's been something that's been really interesting because it's like, it really has done like what I was hoping for, which is brought regulars that come to say Unfold or come to Fold in general, like they have become more interested and they don't know what to expect, and they may not have even, they're not used to going to see like contemporary performance art, and they're used to coming here to club or to just to dance, and so like them to be involved and to actually come and like want to come and like use this space in a different way has been really interesting. And then the amount of artists that I've met that have come to Futur.Shock because their friends have performed, and then I've built a relationship with them. So it has really, and that's been they're the most interesting artists that I've met. That one of them, like who performed, is now gonna do something with Serpentine Gallery. Not that has anything to do with this, but it's just like it's that. And there's artists that I've met that I didn't know. They come here regularly, but I didn't know that they have a whole practice and that they're like incredible performance artists. And so I really do feel like this kind of convergence of both worlds has just happened organically. And the fact that people come like all the way to Canning Town for something kind of quite random and like niche is like I'm surprised that we get so many people, but I'm like really thankful for it.
Yeah, that's so nice. I think it's amazing that you offer this space and setting for different people to explore different things. And as you said, being exposed to new artists yourself, because we're so busy that we're not always out there experiencing what we could if we, in London especially, you could be doing something every hour of the day and being exposed to something new. And the other alternative is looking through social media and just seeing who is put forward to you. And actually the best relationships I have, the best experiences, probably the best work settings I've ever got into has all been through this organic connection of being out in these kind of spaces. So it's natural. The ecosystem is doing its thing. It's doing its thing. It really is.
Yeah, and it's like it really does work, that thing of like coming to an event and meeting people and just being like just chatting naturally and not being so like orchestrated that you know. It's like. And I like that. I like the fact that it's like you become friends and then you realise what amazing work they make and then try to make it fit. So then it's like a good, an organic way of programming as well.
Nice. Okay, so what challenges do you face? So we are in what you use a lot for a club setting space. What challenges do you have with live performance and experiential art in this kind of setting then?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there's loads of different challenges. I mean, obviously there's the funding side of it, because like projects like this do usually need quite a lot of funding, but a lot of the fact that we have a lot of the resources here like helps, but it doesn't, relying just solely on tickets sales means, there's problems with that, and it means that you can't give full fees or like we try to do as best as we can, but and we don't make any money from Futur.Shock. It is purely like a passion project, and I'm thankful to Lasha for like making it happen basically. But yeah, so funding is an issue, but I'm trying to, but there's not that. It's not easy in London, like in Europe, there seems to be a lot more funding, a lot more backing behind like club culture and like creating work for this type of space. But here, like, it really is just the Arts Council, and that's quite difficult. And then within that, it's like you don't want to just have to do a lot of reporting, like it limits what you're able to do or what kind of projects you have to develop. You don't necessarily want to always do certain things that they require, like and they also don't fund necessarily like a program like this. But yeah, so it is a problem because you also don't want to do too many things like sponsorships where things become cheesy or they lose their they lose the rawness of what they're supposed to be. But then also the fact a club environment, another problem is, or a difficulty we've got to a really good place now. Like the way that I work with James is really good, and we now understand each other. But at the beginning, we came from totally different worlds, and he comes from more events, so he was very much like wanting to have, things very polished, and like I would say like contemporary art performance is not usually like that. But now we found this really good like working relationship of how to make it happen. But I would say trying to make people understand what I was trying to do or the world that I was coming from, has been a hard thing. But yeah, we're getting there now, which is really good.
Oh, that's so nice to hear. I think nothing ever makes sense to anyone until it's actually happening.
It has to be proof by like actually just doing it.
Yeah, you have to just do it and hope for the best, as we always do. But I will take this time now to say, like, the reason I was so excited about this conversation was just to give you the recognition. I think you deserve the recognition because our cultural ecosystem it has been for a long time, but it is even more so just being constantly challenged. As you've just spoken about, funding is one of them. Artists are struggling, creativity, rising costs, the list is endless. But I think you're really contributing to it in a super positive way. And as we just spoke about with meeting people in here, it is in this natural cycle, this ecosystem, and really trying to feed into it and to support everyone and to help that growth is really important. I think I will say thank you. I'll say thank you to start with. But also, given that and looking at the current climate and situation that we're in creatively and culturally, what would you like to see that changes, and also what do you think other institutions or venues and cultural spaces could take from what you do here to help progress it in a more positive direction?
Yeah, I think I would like to see more funding or more like at least people to get together to figure out like how we can like support, how we can continue to support this kind of thing. That isn't just going to mean that that we're just not making any money from it. Not that that's the reason we're doing it, because it isn't. This is like a purely passion project, but there definitely needs to be some cohort or like something that like can figure out, or the two worlds come together to figure out how this kind of work can be supported more, more opportunities, like maybe philanthropy in other like organizations to be able to like give like support this kind of project. But because this is community-led, it's the community that support this, which is like amazing. But giving back to them as well, like that's important. But yeah, it's hard to know in the UK, like how we can move forward, really.
No, it's difficult, and I think this is, as we just said, by doing. You are like quite significantly, and community community isn't just a word that people throw around these days. It's so important for all of us socially. I think going back to the 2020 period of us all being kind of taken away from each other and now being brought back together, community is so important, and the fact that people are trusting what experiences you're going to give them, what it can give to them, and maybe even inspiring them. I imagine you have a lot of inspiration comes out of the Futur.Shock events and FOLD.
Yeah, I think so. I feel like definitely, I think artists, like that was another reason like for wanting to do it though, was to see what this kind of environment, like what work can be made, like how it can inspire artists to be like, you can make work in this environment, doesn't have to be for an exhibition, doesn't have, you can make something within this context or whatever you want to do, basically. Yeah, and like, I suppose relationships with universities as well, like getting more students in here to kind of see that this space is a possibility and that you can, and that's why I wanted to get the students in here, because they also were just like, oh, well, we didn't know, that you could do this kind of stuff in here. And so that, like just opening up the space for that kind of thing makes the culture evolve, I think.
Yeah, because I think it will, and it probably has already had influence in a lot of different ways. There's a lot of incredible venues and places around the whole of the UK, the whole of the world, that could be doing similar things, and it's just biting the bullet and people are doing it.
I think people are, though. It really feels like culture is going that way.
I agree.
And there is so much more. You see it, and people contacting me as well that potentially want to collaborate, that are like, that
they're just recognising like the versatility now, and the fact that these traditional institutions that are your white wall gallery that you just walk in and walk back out of again actually can be used in a whole manner of ways. It's great. I'm really excited to see what comes from it. I think there is often this negative look on it, but if you look at it from the way that we can see it from our worlds and the progression, I'm excited to see where we go with it. And,
and it's taking away the connotations of, say, just like, what people think historically what clubbing is about, and that it isn't just about, I don't know, getting on it or whatever. There is a lot more to it, and not having to come here to, it's about coming here just to see a performance and leaving at a normal time. And and also in the future I kind of aim to do things like, I'd love to do a performance like at 6 a.m. that is just brings kind of people from the art world, that they know that they could just wake up at 4 and then come here just to see a piece of performance art and leave, like without any of the club side of it. It's just,
I feel like you just stepped into my brain then, because I was just thinking, I honestly was just thinking, I wonder how it is at 6 a.m. and someone has been raving all night long, or they've just been they're well and truly in the depths of their night, and then all of a sudden they're immersed into a performance, and kind of the way you would interact with that, or how it would be.
Or bringing a whole different audience here at that time, that and the club closes, and then there's seeing more people that wouldn't necessarily come to a club environment is quite cool as well.
Nice. Okay, well, that brings me perfectly onto my last question. When I look back at some of the things you've done here, I can imagine now, in hindsight, you probably would look at some of them and be like, oh, that's a bit mental that we managed to pull that off. But is there anything that has maybe kept you awake at night, or it sits in the back of your mind of, this is completely crazy and I do want to eventually try and do it one day? Is there an idea like that you are looking to actualise and realise in this space?
Well, I really want to push that idea that I had originally with, I want to be able to do an immersive exhibition here, which is, and to realise how that would work in the space, but also making site-specific work that can actually stay here. Like for instance, pushing the idea of a sound piece in the toilet that's very subtle, or other works around the space that you kind of just suddenly see, but fits very perfectly and that's been realised and like thought about within this context that could still stay there like for months. Like that, but that is really hard, and I haven't been able to make it work yet because of like what I said before. Like other promoters, it might not fit with what they want to do, or it doesn't fit with the club in general. So yeah, it's an idea that I want to work towards, but I have to figure out how it's going to work.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine that ideas are.
Yeah, there's so many ideas that I'd love to do, but I just I have to and everything. A lot of things that I've thought about haven't happened. So I think and obviously money is an issue, but it's going to come.
It will come. Yeah. It will absolutely come. Well, thank you today. I've loved. I feel like I could just sit and pick your brain for hours, but I shall not. But I'll look forward to seeing you on the next chapter, 20th of March.
Yeah.
So it'll be a sign for me to buy my ticket, you to buy your ticket. I'm really seeing it because it's amazing to hear about these things. I'm kind of glad actually that I've not experienced it, because it's exciting to have some sort of understanding but not actually see how the space is used.
Yeah.
As alternatively being the other way around. You've got me very excited.
Oh, I'm
I'm
glad.
very interested.
Yeah,
excited to see how the space is used.
Yeah, it should be a good one.